The reception lights shimmered off the gold linen, her veil drifted. My envelope touched the flame in the unity bowl and the smoke lifted like a straight line written across the air. The crackle was soft. The insult was not. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Martin Hale, I'm 72 years old, and this is what really happened. The hall smelled of lilies, warm wax, and a new blunt thing burnt paper. Her heels clicked a clean countdown across the marble, 2 taps on the rim of the bowl, a tilt of the wrist. Ash rose and glittered in the chandelier light as if grief had learned to sparkle. Sir, the efficient breath, do we? I shook my head once, let the theater play. Lena, my daughter, kept her eyes forward as she fed the last of the letter to the fire. The string quartet paused mid-waltz. A fork struck a plate somewhere, then froze, embarrassed. I felt Ruth, my sister, touch my sleeve. Martin, she whispered, say something. Not today, I said, tonight I count. It is a strange ache when the child you taught to read sets light to your words. I had written that letter like a bridge. She turned it into a flare. Across the aisle, Evan watched me, not her. The tiny red eye on his lapel mic blinked. The planner insisted on mics for the vows and toasts for the video. The mics were always on, the cameras too. We were escorted to the fountain for photos. Laughter spooled out on command. The ash kept climbing, invisible until it struck sunlight. A bartender offered me whiskey. Not yet, I told him. Water will do. At dinner, my place card sat 1 chair off-center. Almost can feel heavy when the measurement is in inches and meanings. Evan rose with a practiced smile. To the love of my life, he said, glass high. To the man who raised her to new beginnings. New beginnings, the room echoed. I lifted my glass a 1/4 inch, no more. Dignity can be quiet, it can also be a shield. Lena rapped the cake knife twice on the china, tick-tick. Once that signal meant look at me now, Dad. Today it meant everyone look at me except him. She called for a father-daughter dance anyway. We walked to the light like actors hitting their mark. 2 steps, she asked. As many as you like, I said. We moved, her perfume was floral and expensive. Beneath it, the ghost of ash. Don't be dramatic, she murmured through her smile. Please, not tonight. I promised, I said, I'm keeping it. Everyone's watching. They always have, I said. She turned her face to the camera as the song ended and clapped for the band. I returned to my chair. The videographer's assistant frowned at his board. On the big screen over the floor, a waveform blinked into life, then vanished, just long enough for the room to learn that sound has shape. Ruth Landon's, you okay? I'm measuring, I said. The best man toasted. The groom's mother laughed too hard at jokes that were not hungry enough to eat the moment. Between speeches, the assistant drifted over, tablet tucked against his chest. Mr. Hale, he said, voice thin, can I show you something? He scrubbed back the audio. The hallway mic had caught voices earlier, Lena's bright, Evan's low, and one sentence I could feel settle over my ribs like a stone in a bucket. If he tries anything, smile, Lena said. He loves an audience, starve him. The assistant winced. I didn't switch it to the screen, he said, but the board's recording everything. Keep it rolling, I said, please. He nodded. Youth and conscience are cousins, both look up quickly when named. Evan drifted near the garden doors. He looked older by a year than he had an hour ago. Mr. Hale, he said, about the letter, I told her it was a lot. Did you, I said. I want this to be easy. Ease is for shoes, son, marriage is for feet. His mouth started a laugh and stopped. He adjusted his lapel. The mic's red light kept its patient blink. Earlier that week in my kitchen, Lena had stood by the window that faces the lemon tree I keep alive out of spite and habit. No speech, she'd said, please, and don't make it about Mom. I had stirred the stew and said I'd write a note instead. Don't bring anything, she'd insisted, just yourself. It is hard to explain to someone who never packed a lunch for a child how it feels to be told to arrive empty-handed. You want to argue. You also want to ask if they've eaten. I wrote the letter anyway, not about money, about weight and who carried it when. About a binder your mother kept labeled College L and a promissory note I signed without reading because sometimes love signs where calculation hesitates. On the last page she had written in small, patient script, keep this safe, one day she'll need to know the cost of wings. That page was not in the envelope she burned. I am old in the bones, not in the head. The original lived elsewhere, sealed, dated, witnessed. Only fools bring originals to a performance. Beautiful ceremony, Evan's mother said on the floor a little later, eyes bright with the work of not choosing sides. We didn't know she'd do that. I assumed you didn't, I said. She's strong, she offered. Strength and kindness are cousins, I said. One visits more often. She swallowed and nodded. He looks up to you, she managed. The way you built the business, the way you showed up. Children sometimes mistake proximity for attention, I said, softer than it reads now. But thank you. At my place, a gold-foiled favor waited, a booklet stamped E and L with a thank you in Lena's neat hand. Forgive people so you can be free. I folded it and slipped it into my pocket next to a message from the efficient, copy secured. He sent a photo, today's date, his signature across the seal, the notary stamp biting the paper like a coin. It steadied the bit of me that had rattled since the crackle. Quotable line, some fires flare for applause, others heat the metal that will hold the house. I heard my father in that one. He taught me to keep a ledger not of money only but of promises. Tonight I added a column, restraint. Your restraint is the loudest thing in the room, Ruth murmured. She was right. Sometimes love is not clapping. We reached the part of the evening where people talk into the white mic near the garden doors, recording blessings for the video. A child yelled hello, and the room adored it. The assistant caught my eye and tilted his head toward the board. We're rolling. I stepped toward the doors for air. The garden smelled of wet stone and cut grass. The night breeze moved like a cool hand across the back of my neck. The char smell had thinned to a memory you can taste but not bite. A shadow joined me, Evan. He didn't pretend confidence now. For what it's worth, he said. I told her the letter mattered. She said it was manipulative. I think it was context. Context is merciful, I said. It lets people adjust their aim. He looked past me to the bowl still holding a small rim of ash. What was in it? Another night, I said. Not this one. Tonight you dance with your wife. He nodded, but the question stayed on his face like steam on glass. I almost told him about the mornings your mother left at 5 to make a 6 o'clock shift so she could be home by 2 to drive a 16-year-old to an unpaid internship that turned into a life. I almost told him about the day the car died, and she wheeled that binder into the bank with a calm I have never been able to buy for myself. I almost told him that love is not soft. It is a rope, and decent people take turns on the pull. Instead, I pulled a photo from my wallet. 3 people at a kitchen table, textbooks stacked, bills spread, your mother thin but laughing, Lena fierce with a pen, me with my hand on a note I didn't yet understand. For your pocket, I said. He studied it, and I saw the precise second it became heavier than paper. Thank you, he said, and for once the mic didn't make the word bigger than it needed to be. Back inside, the planner glided by with a smile that felt laminated. We're switching to speeches at the white mic, she chirped, short and sweet. Like vows, I said. Exactly, she floated away to realign centerpieces by a degree only she could perceive. The groom's side clustered, murmuring in that pleasant, uncertain way of people who came with clean shoes and good intentions. One aunt asked where the restrooms were and thanked the room when she found them. A cousin tried to sneak a second slice of cake and lost a small, noble struggle with a fork. They were decent people. Decency can drown in current it didn't see coming. By the garden doors, the white mic waited on its stand like a small lighthouse. Guests lined up, smiles rehearsed. Words like love, journey, forever gathered themselves on tongues. Ruth appeared at my elbow and slid her hand into the crook of my arm. Quotable line number 2, she said quietly. Kindness doesn't make you smaller, it makes your shadow clean. I'll write that one down, I said. You already are, she answered. The assistant lifted his tablet and gave me a tiny nod. I could see, reflected in the glass, the moving mountains of the live feed. He had marked the hallway channel in orange. The board was listening. The building was too. I walked to the edge of the dance floor. The fountain threw coins of light onto the ceiling. The band kept a soft vamp going, neutral and polite. The planner pointed her clipboard like a baton. A small silence spread from the doors as the first guest leaned to the mic to leave a blessing. In that hush, I could hear the unity flame still whispering to the last curl of ash in the bowl. Some fires don't know when their work is over. Evan caught my eye and lifted his glass. This time I believed the gesture. Trees bend and survive. People can learn. I reached the white mic and let my fingertips rest on the stand. The metal was cool. The world felt exact. The assistant's thumb came up. The screen over the floor glowed with a title card, message reel, then faded to the live frame. The crowd stilled into that attentive shape rooms take when they agree, without speaking, to share the next breath. Behind me from the house speakers, a tiny click sounded. The board grabbed the open channel. A voice, a familiar, bright one, broke out of the hallway feed, clear as a bell rung right behind the ear. If he tries anything, smile. He loves an audience. Starve him. Lena's words, not whispered now, not private, not ash. I lifted my eyes to the camera, to my daughter, to the room that smelled of flowers and endings, and opened my mouth. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. The speakers already did the part she thought was private. Heads tilted toward Lena as if flowers had to choose a son. Play it back, someone breathed near the cake table. A knife tapped china, tick, 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 too quick to be ceremony, too careful to be accident. The band cut its vamp. The planner's smile failed and then reappeared thinner. Lena's eyes fixed on me, cold, as if she could unring sound by force. I spoke into the white mic. Blessings, I said steady. That's what we leave here. I brought mine earlier. It burned bright. Nervous laughter worked the edges of the floor. Evan moved 2 steps toward her, then toward me, then stopped between us, pulled by gravity he didn't understand yet. Cut the feed, Lena called to the board, bright for guests, blades for crew. Technical glitch. The assistant hesitated. He looked at me, then at Evan, then at the efficient. The efficient, quiet man, soft shoes, gave the smallest shake of his head. My phone buzzed, not a glitch. Record intact. I leaned toward the mic. Leave it, I said. We're all dressed for the truth. Quotable line, a wedding is a promise in public. Honesty should be too. Lena smiled the way faces do when they remember a different script. Dad, you're being cruel. Cruelty is easy, I said. This is patience. Evan's mother stood, no theatrics. Lena, she said, sit a moment. Let the adults fix the sound. Adults, the word carried weight it hadn't earned an hour earlier. Cousins sat without knowing why. At the cake table, the blade resumed its delicate tapping, slower tappy-tap. The caterer's hand trembled. A sugar flower slid, then found its edge again. Tension spares odd things, icing, candles, the stubborn sparkle of chandeliers. The assistant raised volume a breath, then eased it when Lena moved. Fair, careful. The screen showed the hallway, empty arches, audio like weather. Ruth touched the pole of the mic stand, not to steady me, to steady the metal. Say your blessing, she murmured. Make it short. I nodded. Love is work, I told the room. The kind you don't film. Today we celebrate pictures. Tomorrow you have laundry. May you have good soap and better memory. The room permitted a breath that wasn't applause. Then Evan surprised his own side. He stepped to the mic without looking at Lena. I owe a word, he said, to my wife, to my father-in-law. He faced me. I told her not to burn it. It mattered. A murmur rose from his row, uneasy, honest. Lena's jaw barely moved. You're doing this now. I am, he answered. Ally reveal, the groom wasn't blind. He hadn't started brave, but he found a spine where it counts on the record. He turned to me. What was in the letter? He asked, not for drama, but for air. History, I said, and a bill of materials. Then I want to hear it, he said, looking to the efficient like a man asking for rules before he plays a harder game. The efficient lifted a slim folder. A gold seal winked. He didn't open it. There is a copy, he told the room. Notarized, dated months ago, placed with me at the bride's request to keep speeches short. It will not be read tonight. The record is intact. Evan blinked at the bride's request. Lena's glance slid to him, then cut to me. I wanted boundaries, she said. Look at him, he makes everything about him. I make everything count, I said. Reflective line, when you stop arguing with how people see you, you can listen to how they stand. She stood on applause, I stood on ledger. Clinking rose, one spoon on one glass, then others, unsure if they called for a kiss or courage. The planner waved like a conductor shooing birds. Dessert, she cried too loud. Caterers moved, plates appeared. Silver met porcelain in a polite percussion that let people look at forks instead of each other. Sweetness arrived on schedule, heat did not. Evan's uncle approached with the careful gait of a man bringing news in a small town. Mr. Hale, he said, I run numbers. My family likes clean books. If my nephew misstepped, we correct. If he didn't, we stand. He glanced at Lena. We are measuring. Good, I said, so am I. Ruth cracked a sugared pecan and slid half into my palm. Eat, she said, thinking burns calories. We tried the cake, almond with apricot. My slice was neatly cut. The knife left tiny ridges like maps in snow. The assistant leaned close. Sir, he whispered, there's more on the hallway channel. Earlier, the bridesmaids. Save it, I said, label date, keep it clean. He nodded. I'm with you, he said. Be with the record, I said, that's safer. Evan's parents returned. His father introduced himself without titles. We know you didn't come to humiliate anyone, he said. We also know Lena embarrassed you. I apologize for the part where we clapped. We didn't understand the scene. Understanding is the only apology that spends, I said. We'd like to read the letter, his mother said. Not tonight, tomorrow alone. I insist, I said. We'll tell our boy to read it too, his father added. He's been warm his whole life. Warm makes people soft. Soft is not steel. Steel can be taught, I said. Reflective line, some people arrive with polished manners and no tools. Tonight was a hardware store. People were choosing. The band started a song you can't ignore without looking like you hate joy. Couples moved. Laughter attempted a comeback. The veneer held until a small accident knocked it. The cake knife slipped and skittered, tap, tap, tap like a metronome losing patience. Lena flinched, her glance hit the blade, then me. "Stop starring," she said when we were close enough to pretend privacy. "I'm witnessing," I said. "You just need control." "No," I said, "I need memories." She looked toward the screen. Engagement photos rolled, beach, market, a bookstore where she stood on tiptoe to kiss him by the cookbooks. The soundboard had a tab marked hallway, orange, and patient. The videographer circled, "B-roll of you too." "Of course," Lena said, snapping into the character she preferred. Her face performed love. Her fingers were bloodless on the bouquet. Cameras show, hands tell. Evan crossed to me with a small velvet box. Father of the bride gift. A simple tie clip, silver, clean. "It's good metal," I said. "I don't want to buy shiny and give cheap," he said. Quotable line, a man's worth shows up where the receipt doesn't. At the next table, Evan's mother conferred with the officiant. When she finished, she came to me. "We have questions," she said, "not accusations." She glanced at Lena. "She's been sharp, it felt like independence, now it feels like strategy." "Independence is a door," I said, "strategy is a lock." "My sister heard something in the powder room," she added. "Clean cut, no strings after tonight. We're not sure what it means." "The hallway mics do good work," I said. "Tomorrow 10 my office, we listen without theatrics." "We'll be there." Lena appeared like weather breaking. "Are we done?" she asked. "Can we greet people who actually want to be happy for us?" "After," Evan said. "After what?" "After I stop pretending I'm not bothered." "You're embarrassing me." "You handled that," he said, soft. Her eyes flashed at me. "You made him like this." "I made him audible," I said. Gravity had moved. The sweetheart table wasn't the center anymore. The assistant brought me a thumb drive no bigger than a fingernail, labeled Hallway A1 Pre-Ceremony. "Backup," he said. "Keep the original until I ask," I said. Evan's father approached. "Walk." We moved toward the corridor where the Unity Bowl still breathed a gray spiral. "Honor love," he told his son. "That includes the people who loved your wife before you did." He looked at me. "We won't stand for cruelty dressed in silk." I stood there and thought she stressed. "It's a bit," Evan said. Then the smell hit, burnt paper, not a bit. We turned back because voices were rising. The planner jogged toward Lena. "Bouquet toss," she said, "we're behind." Lena lifted the bouquet, then her eyes caught the screen. The assistant hadn't pushed anything. The image was innocent, childhood photos, but a small preview window was left open, a thumbnail of the hallway file, not open, not hidden. She lowered the flowers. The cake knife tapped again, tick, tick, tick. She threw the bouquet too hard. It arced past the circle and hit near the bar. Laughter happened because it had to, brittle and brief. Evan's aunt didn't move. She watched Lena, not the flowers. After the toss, Evan took the white mic. No one asked, he simply did it. "My wife burned a letter," he said, clear, not cruel. "She did it to hurt a man who has done more for her than anyone else. I can't celebrate that." "Give it back," Lena said, reaching. He kept it. "I'm going to read that letter tomorrow," he said. "And then we'll talk about what belongs to the past and what we carry forward. Tonight we won't pretend." His side shifted, uneasy, loyal, awake. Lena's voice thinned to a thread only the mic could love. "You don't get to win." "I'm not playing," I said, "I'm building." She signaled to the DJ. Music surged, lights spun. The planner announced last call for speeches, her tone inching toward normal. A small, folded square slid into my palm. Evan's aunt had moved past like a shadow. "For you," she said, "powder room 10 minutes before the ceremony." She tapped the fold. "I don't like games." Inside, Lena to bridesmaid. "No strings after tonight, I want a clean cut." "Not victory, direction." I looked up. Evan had seen the exchange. His eyebrows asked, "Now?" "Not yet," I mouthed. The cake knife tapped once, twice, stopped. Lena lifted her glass. "To love," she cried, "to letting go of old stories." I raised my water. "To carrying what holds," I said. The assistant's orange tab waited on the board, quiet as a door you could open with one finger and change a house's air. I stepped to the mic. The room tilted into attention. A fork chimed short, almost annoyed. The cake knife lay still, glinting. "Mr. Hale," the officiant said low, "if you speak again, speak plain." "I have one question," I said. I touched the mic, cool, exact, faithful. "Lena," I asked, meeting my daughter's gaze, "what did you mean by no strings after tonight?" The DJ's music thinned, the assistant's hand hovered, Evan's mother rose, the groom sidelined. I meant exactly what I said, Lena answered, voice clear as glass. Which is? That after tonight, she said, I don't owe you anything. The aunt who handed me the note exhaled an old prayer and looked at her nephew. Evan closed the space between husband and man. He reached for the mic with hands that didn't shake now. Then I owe him something, he said. He turned to me, to the room, to the screen, to the orange tab waiting like a fuse. I have something to play, he said, now. Evan didn't rush it. He held the mic, then set it back on the stand. For a second I thought he'd press the orange tab and let the hallway speak for us again. He didn't. He looked at me as if the next right thing might be small and private instead of loud and cinematic. Evan's not here. Me good. Efficient, there's a quiet room off the corridor. We moved like a small weather system. Evan, his parents, Ruth, the efficient, the planner trailing and pretending not to listen, the assistant hugging his tablet like a life preserver. The door clicked shut on the reception. The room smelled like quinine and old polish. A credenza held a guest book and a box of extra programs. I set my palm on the book. Paper has a temperature if you wait long enough to notice. Ruth, this won't take long. Assistant, I kept timestamps. Efficient, we are not litigating, we are clarifying. I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket and brought out the thing that does not photograph well, an old blue notebook. Spiral bent at one corner, corners bristled with tabs. On the front cover in your mother's careful hand, a single word, college. I said it on the credenza. No ash on this paper. No applause. Evan's mother, is that the letter? Me, this pays for letters. I opened to the page where a check copy lived under tape yellowed by decades. A promissory note stapled next to it, the one I signed without reading because there was soup on the stove and a teenager packing a kitchen. Beside all that, in the small, patient script that raised a girl to a woman, keep this safe. One day she'll need to know the cost of wings. Evan's father leaned forward, not to own the page but to witness it. She burned the bridge, he said. You brought the river. I nodded, and the bank. I slid a newer folder free of the notebook, the Hale Family Trust Amendment 3, notarized, dated May 5, 2025, Notary ID BD 48721. Attached, Schedule A Assets, Schedule B Governance, and Exhibit C Appointment of Successor Trustee. Efficient, I've held a sealed copy. That seal remains intact. Assistant, I can photograph the outer packet and log the custody chain. Evan's mother, please do. I placed a second document on the table, warranty deed, cabin at South Hollow, record 2025-19487, County Clerk's Office, recorded July 2, 2025. The cabin went to the trust 2 months ago. Along with it, voting control of my company Hale Work and Wood, 51% of Class A shares now titled to the trust, instrument SW7712 on the registrar's ledger. Evan read, he didn't speed. He traced sentences with a thumb the way careful people do when they've decided not to miss a word. The room forgot the band next door. A bass line pulsed through the wall like a polite heart. Evan, this section, beneficiaries. Me, yes. Evan's father, go on. I let the quiet carry it. Primary beneficiary, the listening fund, educational grants for dependents of current Hale employees, administration by trustees. Secondary, future grandchildren of the grantor, if any, for apprenticeship, trade tools, and first home equity. The bride is not a beneficiary. The bride may not act as trustee, co-trustee, or trust protector. The groom may serve as co-trustee under supervision of Ruth Hale during all initial disbursements. Ruth exhaled. She has a way of making relief look like a hymn. You didn't leave the world, you organized it. Evan's mother was quiet, a long beat. You put faith before kinship. Kinship is where faith starts, I said, not where it stops. She looked at her son. Do you accept? He didn't answer with words first. He reached out. The handshake was warm, certain, not triumphant. We held it a second longer than strangers do and shorter than thieves. That was my measure. Quotable line, a real gift doesn't change hands, it changes shoulders. The efficient slid a small acknowledgement form between us. Trustee acceptance, he said. No disbursements tonight. This is receipt and responsibility. Evan initialed the line, date neat and square. The pen ticked against the paper like a tiny gavel. He didn't look at the door. He didn't ask permission from the room we had left. He did work. Evan's father, we will ensure compliance. Our family knows the shape of rules. Ruth, this is not punishment, it's alignment. Me, it's heat taken out of the wrong fire. Reflective line, there are days you throw water, there are days you move the stove. Today I moved it. We closed the folder. The planner, who had been air and wallpaper, found her voice. I have to ask, she said, soft. Will there be a scene? No, I said, there will be a wedding. I picked up the blue notebook. It felt heavier now that its contents had a new address in the world. I slid it back into my jacket. The habit of carrying history doesn't end when you file a paper. On the way out, the assistant hovered. Sir, the hallway file the bridesmaid's bit you asked me to save. It includes a line, once tonight is done, he's cut out. That seems relevant. It was, I said, we have answered it. He nodded, then I'll keep it for context, not spectacle. Good mans. We re-entered the reception. Air changed. You can feel when a room has learned a new idea even if you didn't announce the lesson. The band had found a brighter key. The cake knife lay where it had stopped, silver thigh across porcelain. The unity bowl had cooled to a dark ring. Evan's mother met Lena halfway to us. The conversation didn't carry, but the posture did. Mothers know how to hide fires under blankets. Some flames survive blankets, some remember water. Lena's smile was intact. The edges had learned consequences. Ruth, tell me you aren't going to gloat. Me, I'm going to dance. We did, not to make a point, to take one. Ruth has small feet and the steady balance of a woman who has carried boxes upstairs no one thanks her for. She laughed once, a real one, when I clipped her shoe. The sound washed ash out of the air more effectively than any speech I could have made. Between songs, Evan drifted to me again. The warmth had not left his handshake. I want to tell them, he said, meaning his parents, tonight. You should, I said, but you don't have to tell anyone else, not yet, not in there. I tipped my chin at the room. Some truths grow straighter in quiet. Evans, then I'll keep it in my pocket next to the photo. We stepped aside. Evan told his parents. His mother closed her eyes and released a breath that had been living in her shoulders all evening. His father's jaw worked once like a man deciding whether to argue with a fair rule. He didn't. He shook my hand too, warm as his son's. That's called education. Lena watched the cluster and misread the silence as victory. She lifted her chin at me as if to say, there, it's over, old man. I didn't return the signal. Signals are for trains. I am a road, you choose or you don't. The assistant passed, subtle as a waiter. He pressed a small envelope into my hand, chain of custody log printed from his tablet. You'll want this, he whispered, for when stories rewrite themselves. I tucked it next to the notebook. Stories rewrite themselves, I murmured, but records stay put. Quotable line, memory argues, paper repeats. During the bouquet photos, Evan's aunt crossed to Lena. Aunt, lovely flowers. Lena, heavy. Aunt, some weights are earned. It wasn't a fight, it was weather. The groom's side had moved from unease to knowledge. That's a better country. The white mic sat unassuming. Guests returned to it for recorded blessings. Children said goodnight to cameras like they were old uncles. A grandparent said, hold hands on bad days, on good days too. The tips of the room softened. Even sugar learns restraint after enough air. Near the fountain, the officiant approached with a small, sealed envelope stamped with his sash's emblem. He held it to me. Per your instructions months ago, he said, deliver only if the letter is destroyed in public and only after trusteeship acceptance. I turned the envelope over. On the back, my own notation from spring, if the blessing is burned, bless with law. Ruth, are you sure? Me, yes. We brought Evan and his parents to the edge of the floor by the garden doors. No cameras followed. The assistant occupied the DJ with a question about cables. The planner, who had chosen a side now, not mine, not theirs, but the side of keeping an event from turning into a clip, adjusted a centerpiece 30 degrees to block one lens. I broke the seal. Inside, a single-page letter on firm paper, attorney letterhead in the corner, case file ref, HTR 0605. The text was simple and dry the way good fences are. This notice acknowledges the filing and execution of Amendment 3 to the Hale Family Trust. List of assets attached, appointment of co-trustee Evan Dalton under supervision of Ruth Hale. Exclusion of Lena Hale from beneficiary and fiduciary roles under sections 4.2 and 6.1. Disbursements to listening fund begin Q4 2025 upon receipt. Evan read it once, twice. He folded it with care. He didn't pocket it. He handed it back to me and kept only the knowledge. There are papers you carry and papers you become. We joined the final toasts. A joke fell short. The maid of honor singed her page and blew it out. Harmless smoke this time. Then Evan's father lifted his glass. He spoke like a bridge builder, eyes on spans and piers, not on crowds. To leniency when we're young, he said. To accountability when we're old enough to know better. To families that choose the harder good. Here, I thought, is a man who understands that applause is cheap and steel is not. When the band started their last set, Evan found me near the coats that smelled like winter even in summer. He looked younger without the noise around him. I owe you more than a shake, he said. You owe me tomorrow at 10, I said. You, your parents, Ruth the efficient, we go through it line by line. After that, every grant we sign, we think of a girl who worked late at a fluorescent desk so I could sign a promissory note without checking the math and never once call it sacrifice. Evans, I'll be there. Me, bring your questions. Evan, I've got one now. Me, ask. Evan, what do I say to my wife tonight? Me, tell her you married a ledger, not a vault. Ledgers welcome additions, vaults hoard. Evan, and if she demands a key? Me, then you show her the door, keys come later. We stepped back into the hall. The Unity bowl, now cold, reflected a perfect little image of the chandelier. Ash had settled, people had too. I breathed and the air didn't taste like paper anymore. It tasted like cake and cooling tea and a wedding trying stubbornly to be a wedding. Then the DJ's mic popped with a feedback squeal and the planner, flustered, reached across the soundboard to kill it. Her sleeve brushed a fader. A channel jumped. The orange tab snapped from mute to live. From the ceiling speakers, bright and crisp, the hallway's earlier chorus spilled into the room. Bridesmaid, no strings after tonight. Lena, exactly, clean cuts. Bridesmaid, what about Evans? Lena, he'll learn to choose. Not speculation, not inference. Their voices recorded and now disastrously public. The bouquet, the cake, the chandeliers, everything seemed to stop for one unkind beat of clarity as every eye in that elegant room slid from the speakers to the bride. Evan looked at me, he didn't ask for permission. He stepped to the white mic and reached for the envelope the officiant had given back to me. He didn't take the paper, he touched it. He used its weight differently. Evan, this was supposed to stay quiet, he said to the room. Out of respect, but respect isn't a rug you throw over a hole. He lifted his eyes to his wife. Evan, we need to talk in front of witnesses. Evan didn't wait for applause. He kept his hands open, palms calm on the stand, as if he were steadying a table everyone leaned on. Evan, we need to talk in front of witnesses. The DJ pulled the music to a hush. A few guests drifted toward the doors, but most stayed. People know the difference between gossip and duty. Efficient, short statements only, no shouting. Respect the vows you spoke an hour ago. Evan, here is fine. Lena's veil brushed her shoulder. She set her jaw, then smoothed it for the cameras. I burned one letter, she said. I refused a performance. He wanted a speech so he could collect affection. I said no. Evan didn't look at me, he didn't need to. You burned context, he said. And before that you planned a clean cut after tonight. I heard it, so did the room. Lena, I was protecting us. Evan, from what? Lena, from strings, from being managed, from always owing. I felt the white mic's metal cool under my fingertips. I wasn't speaking, I was grounding. The dance floor had emptied on its own, a glossy lake no one wanted to cross. Beyond the glass, the night pressed close. Evan's mother stepped forward with a gentleness that did not apologize for being firm. Child, she said, love doesn't cut, it ties. Lena's laugh snapped, that's the problem. Evan looked at the officiant. I need to make a financial statement, he said, plain. The officiant nodded. Speak to money like you would to any sharp tool, put it down carefully after. Evan, we opened a joint expense account 2 weeks ago. Today, without asking me, the transfer to that account increased by 5 figures. It was labeled wedding cushion. It matched a spreadsheet you titled post-wedding reset. I've moved those funds back to my account and frozen the card attached to that line. Our finances will remain separate until we agree on how to treat family and history. That is not punishment. That is a lock until we learn how to hold the same key. A quiet rippled the tables, not shock, understanding, finding words. Lena, you're embarrassing me. Evan, no, I'm stopping us from bankrupting respect. He reached for his wallet. He took out a brand new metallic card with our initials from the vendor gift bag, E&L, engraved like a promise made by a marketing department. He set it on the cake plate and without theater pressed the knife through it. The blade clicked. The card split. The room exhaled a small, honest sound, not cheers, relief with edges. I didn't smile, I didn't flinch. I let the gesture belong to him. Quotable line, money tells the truth sooner than people do. Ruth's hand found my sleeve. Breathe, she said. We did. The doors to the garden opened and cool air moved through the hall. Napkins lifted and settled. The empty dance floor took the breeze first. You could see it in the way the confetti drifted, aimless, soft. Night wrapped the terrace. Efficient, if there are further statements, take them to the terrace. We moved. Shoes on marble were softer now. My palm found the iron rail outside. It had kept a memory of the sun and then surrendered it to the breeze. That is a good life, warm when it can be, cool when it must. Evan faced his wife. I want a marriage, he said, not a strategy. Lena, strategies keep marriages alive. Evan, strategies keep score, marriage keeps time. She looked past him at me. Are you satisfied? Me, I didn't come for satisfaction. Reflective line, age teaches you to trade victories for clarity. Lena, then what do you want? Me to stop performing pain for people who paid for cake. Ruth leaned on the rail. He's been kinder than you know, she told Lena, not to win a point but to lay a plank. Evan's father joined us, hands in pockets, eyes steady. We'll settle vendor balances tonight, he said. Not as hush money, as proof the adults are still adults. Tomorrow we settle truths. The assistant hovered at the doorway like a lighthouse that learned to walk. I've muted all room mics, he said. Hallway is locked, backup saved. If anyone tries to stream live, I can see it. Maze, thank you. Assistant, sir, there's also a courier waiting by the side entrance. For you. The envelope was thick, I knew what it was. The breeze lifted its flap. Ruth and now. Me's no. I slid the envelope into my inner pocket. The paper warmed against my shirt, then forgot me. Paper is faithful that way. Evan's mother stood with us and watched the glass doors. Inside, the dance floor stayed empty a long time. A few brave guests made small circles near the bar, talking about weather and good schools. People of decency doing what decency does when grace is late. It holds the room together with conversation and refills water. The night breeze freshened. It lifted the edge of Lena's veil and laid it across her arm like a cool hand. She didn't brush it away. She stared at the black garden, the lawn lights making coins on the grass. Lena, you think I wanted to be cruel. Me's no. Lena, I wanted to be free. Me, so did your mother when the bank closed early and the rent was due. She flinched, the name landed like a small bell, not weapon, not halo, memory. Evan, we can be free together, but not by cutting the people who taught you how to walk. The planner eased onto the terrace holding 2 flutes of water. She offered them without small talk like communion. Evan took one. I took the other. The glass was cold enough to notice, not cold enough to resent. Efficient, we have honored the witnesses. Now each couple must honor its room. He glanced at me. Mr. Hale. I met his eyes. I'm done with microphones, I said. This next part is for hands. I went back inside and crossed the empty dance floor. The band watched me with the polite attention of men who have learned to read a room. I set my water down on the piano and held up 2 fingers. The leader answered with a nod and found the quietest ballad in his book. Strings brushed the air like someone smoothing a wrinkled shirt. I walked to Lena. Dance with me, I said. She hesitated, then placed her hand in mine. Her fingers were warm, mine were steady. We moved, not the father-daughter choreography from earlier, not the fancy steps we practiced when she was 8 on the kitchen tiles, just a slow turn on a floor that had seen better feet and worse stories. The night breeze came through the open doors and cooled our faces. Her veil ticked my sleeve. The empty room gave us space to see how much work 2 people must do to move in one direction. Lena, I don't want to be poor again. Me, then don't be. Lena, it's not that simple. Me, it is this simple. Don't confuse wealth with worth. We turned, her heels whispered on the wood. My shoes spoke the heavier syllables of age. Seconds gained dignity. No one clapped. Good. Reflective line. Sometimes the hardest forgiveness you give a child is letting her watch herself. The song ended. We didn't bow. We returned the room to its guests. Evan stepped in. My turn, he said with a half smile that wasn't a weapon. He danced with his wife, not to prove anything to anyone else, to find out if choosing could begin again. I left them the floor and moved to the far doors. The night air met me like a partner who still remembered the steps. I stood under the awning and watched the trees accept the wind without arguing. Ruth approached with Evan's parents. They were not triumphant. They were practical. The aunt who had handed me the powder room note joined them and stood like a sentry who had seen her post through. Evan's father, vendors are settled. We kept gratuities standard, no favors. Ruth, good. Aunt, the girls are deleting the pre-ceremony chatter from their phones. Consider it housekeeping, not mercy. Maze, thank you. The night deepened. I took the envelope back out and ran my thumb along the seam, feeling the ridge the notary's stamp made through 2 layers. It is a small thing, that ridge. It is also a fence. Lena stepped out alone. No veil now. Just the dress and a young woman who had painted a map with fire and then learned that maps still lead to walls. She stopped beside me without looking up. Lena, I don't know how to fix it. Me, start by not trying to win. Lena, that's all I've done my whole life. Me, you didn't win, you survived, different verbs. Lena, teach me the other. Me, tomorrow, tens. She nodded. It was not surrender, it was posture adjusting to balance. I could work with posture. The DJ, clever now, brought the volume back softly and coaxed the room onto the floor in concentric rings, leaving the center open like a pond with a clear sky afloat in it. Couples circled. A flower girl slept face down on her mother's shoulder, her hand still pinched around a petal as if saving it for later. Ruth, your lavings. Me soon. Ruth without the last word. Me, the last word belongs to paper. I turned the envelope over. Address block, certified sticker. Case ref, HOTR0605, the courier's handwriting neat and square. I slid it back into my jacket. Quotable line, you don't shut doors with anger, you shut them with hinges that fit. Then the planner, pale but composed, approached with the manager of the venue. He carried a clipboard and that look managers wear when math meets midnight. Manager Mr. Hale, you co-signed the venue contract. There's a clause about after-hours extensions. We're approaching it. The signer must authorize an additional block or the staff begins teardown at 11 on the dot. I had forgotten that clause on purpose when we booked this place. It kept weddings honest. It also made tonight's next choice precise. Me, what are the options? Manager, authorize the block or let the contract enforce itself. Planner, the couple wanted a sparkler send-off at 11:15. Evan's mother measured, sparklers can be replaced with hands. I looked at Lena and Evan. They looked at each other. For the first time tonight, the question between them was not whether to win, but how to share a decision. Lena, we don't need the extra block. Evan, will end on times. The manager made a note. His pen moved like a small wheel catching proper track. Financial lockout is not always a slammed door. Sometimes it is simply a contract doing its job when no one is bending it. Saving a young couple from buying 15 minutes of applause might be the richest thing an old man can give. The band started the last song. Guests gathered in a wide circle, leaving the dance floor empty in the center. The doors stayed open. Night air moved over wood like a hand blessing a table. I stood at the threshold and felt the breeze salt my cheek with its cool. It was not forgiveness, it was climate, but I took the ease it offered. The circle of guests lifted their arms and made a tunnel for the pair to walk through when the music ended. Not sparklers, fingers and rings and ordinary light. Better. The song fell toward its last chord. The planner counted quietly to 4 and pointed at the doors. The couple would run through the tunnel and onto the steps where the car waited. Tradition performed, revised, order restored. The officiant stepped to me and spoke so only I could hear. Do you want to hand her the notice now? I touched the envelope once, the way you touch a stone before you cross. Me, no, the law can wait its turn. The last chord held. The dance floor stood empty and shining, a bright mirror with no face in it yet. The night breeze lifted again, cool and exact, and the veil on a chair beside the doors rose and fell as if remembering a tide. Then the DJ's voice came over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, our couple. They faced the tunnel. They took 2 steps. And a uniformed courier, late by a minute and exact by profession, stepped through the side door with a clipboard and a certified mailer, scanning the room for one name. The courier stood at the edge of the empty center like a lighthouse in a ballroom, yellow vest, reflecting the chandelier's coins. He flipped a page on his clipboard, checking names with his finger. Courier delivery for Lena Hale, certified, signature required. The room did not gasp. It made room. People of manners do not back away in a panic. They opened space like water parting for a boat. The tunnel of arms the guests had made for the send-off lowered, then lifted again as they stepped to the sides, creating a clear lane from the door to the bride. Lena did not move. The veil on the chair breathed once and went still. Evan took 1 step toward the courier, then stopped. He looked to me not for permission, but to be sure of the ground under his feet. Me, you can sign to receive, you can't sign to read. He nodded, he knew the difference. The courier glanced between them, professional, uncurious. He held the envelope by 2 corners so the room could see its face, the attorney's letterhead, the certified sticker, the case reference. The bright white looked brighter under the chandelier, a small moon of paper in a night of satin. Officiant will receive it here, his voice carried like a gavel wrapped in felt, in the presence of witnesses. He brought the little podium forward, the one the planner used for seating charts. The courier placed the envelope on it as if laying down a clean plate. The planner, now wholly on the side of order, set a pen next to it. A black line of ink waited like a road. Lena, this is humiliating. Evan, it's paperwork. Me, it's light. She stiffened. She looked at the guests, then at the doors, then at the white square that had turned the floor into a page. When she did not move, the officiant lifted the pen and set it gently in Evan's hand. Officiant, husband may receive service for household matters affecting the registry. Evan signed. His pen strokes were careful as stitches. He passed the clipboard back. The courier checked the line, tore off the receipt, and placed the envelope into Evan's palm with a nod that said, "My work here ends exactly where yours begins." He turned and left the way he came, a door opening and closing without sound. Quotable line, law doesn't shout, it shows up with a clipboard. The envelope looked heavier than paper. Light found its edges and held like a premonition. Evan did not open it. He looked to the efficient. Evan will read this privately. Efficient as it should be. A murmur moved through the room, the sound people make when they accept a decision they would not have chosen. The bandleader set his bow down, the DJ cued nothing, the chandeliers hummed, the Unity Bowl kept its ring of ash, everything asked for permission to resume. Ruth let them walk the tunnel, she whispered, on time. The planner, grateful for a ritual that could still be salvaged, raised her hands. Friends and family, she said, voice even, let's give them the send-off they planned, arms up. A tunnel of hands rose again, not sparklers, fingers and rings in soft shadows. The path ran from the dance floor to the doors and out to the steps where the car idled, its taillights breathing red. Evan turned to Lena. For the first time all night, he did not look like a man trying to balance a room. He looked like a man choosing a direction. Evans, walk with me. Lena's mouth tightened, then loosened. She took his arm, they faced the tunnel. She took one step, he did not move. Evan, before we go, he said, not into a mic but in a voice the room could borrow. I need to say something to my wife and to the man who raised her. He lifted the envelope, not high, not like a trophy, just enough to acknowledge the fact that paper had become the new center of gravity. Evan, we will read this alone. We will make a plan with the people who have proved they love us, not the ones who clapped for a fire. To my wife, I will not be your enemy, I will not be your audience, I will be your partner if you want one. Lena blinked fast, no tears yet, pride first, then the thing under it. Lena, and if I do. Evan, then I will be a man who keeps his word to himself. The room did an ordinary miracle. It absorbed a truth and did not break. Couples lowered their arms a little, then raised them again, as if agreeing to hold a roof until beams arrive. I stepped forward just enough to be seen and no more. Me, before you go, Lena, I have a blessing I did not put in the letter. She looked at me like a swimmer looks at a ladder. Me, may you learn the difference between strings and lifelines. A muscle moved in her cheek, something inside her, the part that used to sit at a kitchen table with a pencil and ask for one more problem to solve, stirred. I saw it pass through her face like wind through a thin curtain. Pride and grief are heavy, curiosity is light. Evan's mother stood with her hands clasped at her waist like she was holding the rest of the room together. Go, she said, walk through your people. They did, arms arched overhead, fingers touched, rings flashed. The guests didn't whoop, they made a low sound like tide over stones. Gentle, endurance not cheer. At the doors the night reached in. The air was cool and smelled of wet stone and eucalyptus. The steps outside held a soft glow from the path lights, and the car's tail lit them red like embers that had chosen a safer job. They reached the threshold. Evan paused and turned back to the efficient. Evans, tomorrow tens. Efficient, tomorrow tens. The couple stepped out. The tunnel lowered and became arms again. The planner exhaled an entire novel in one breath and gave me a look that said, thank you for choosing the version of history that can still fit in an album. People began to move with purpose. Coats reclaimed shoulders. Hugs took the shape of quiet covenants. The band started packing cables. The Unity Bowl's flame was gone. Only a dark rim remained around the little basin like a ring where a wedding band had been. Ruth and I stepped into the garden. The night had decided to be kind. The breeze kept its cool hand on the back of my neck. Ruth, how's your ledger? Me, balanced enough to sleep. She nudged me with an elbow, one last quote for the road. Me, all right. Legacies aren't inherited, they're assigned to the ones who are willing to carry them in daylight. Ruth, put that on a plaque and don't sell it. We sat on the low stone wall by the fountain. Coins lay in the shallow water, circles of old wishes. A plastic sword from a child's favor bag floated past like a retired knight. I flicked it to the side. The splash was small and satisfied. Evan's parents joined us. They weren't radiant, they were resolved. There's a difference. Resolved people do good math. Evan's father will bring coffee, you bring the patience. Me, bring your reading glasses. Evan's mother, I never take them off anymore. We smiled in the way you do when a small army forms with no rehearsal, and everyone already knows their job. The assistant came out last, tablet under his arm, the little orange tab finally gray. Assistant, board down, files backed up. I put the chain of custody form in your pocket when you weren't looking. Me, you're the only thief I'll thank. Assistant, I heard your line earlier. Memory argues, paper repeats. I wrote it on the back of my time card. Me, good. When people ask you why you do things the careful way, show them the back. He grinned like a man who had found a craft he could love. The manager came to confirm the hour. 11 approached on rails. Staff lifted centerpieces and collected votives. The room, patient all night, began to close itself gently, the way sea closes after a boat moves through. I stood and found the Unity bowl. A faint gray outline marked the spot where the letter had burned. I rested 2 fingers on the rim. The metal was cool. Memory had let go of heat. Reflective line, I learned that forgiveness isn't a pardon, it's a boundary with a view. Ruth already. Me, yes. We walked toward the front. On the steps, the car idled. Evan and Lena stood beside it, not inside it, as if acknowledging that a door is not a decision. They saw us and came down 2 steps to meet us. Lena, tomorrow 10, she said before I could. Me, bring a pens. She half smiled, a fragile thing but earned. Evan, Mom has our breakfast order. Dad has a ledger. I have questions. Me, good questions spend better than apologies. He put his arm around his wife's shoulders. She didn't shrug it off. She didn't lean in either. A balance, not a victory. Lena's, will you bring that blue notebook? Me, it goes where the work does. A silence strung between us like a fresh line in laundry, not heavy, ready to hold shirts. The driver stepped forward and opened the door. Evan guided Lena in, then paused and looked back at me. He touched his breast pocket. I knew the photo lived there, folded twice, edges softening already. Evan, I'll return this when I know how to add to it. Me, keep it, records don't get thinner in good homes. He nodded. He got in. The door closed with a dignified click. The car pulled away, tires whispering across the wet grit. The red glow softened and then was gone. The steps felt suddenly too big and then exactly the right size. Ruth, you did it. Me, I didn't swing, I set the table. Ruth, the same difference. Me, different work. We took the long way to the curb. The night smelled like a promise kept by weather, not by people, a good smell. Halfway down the path I stopped and looked back through the doors at the dimmed hall. The chandeliers had settled into their own breathing. Staff moved like a tide in low light. A single napkin on the floor looked like a small white flag and then somehow like a wing. My phone buzzed once. A message from an unknown number, courier delivered, acceptance recorded, tomorrow 10:00 confirmed, efficient. Another from the assistant, backups encrypted, link shared with you and Ruth, sleep. I put the phone away. I didn't respond. Some acknowledgments are best left to tomorrow's pen. At the curb, Ruth squeezed my arm. Ruth, one more reflective line before we end the night. Me, all right, dignity is keeping your hands open when paper could make them fists. She laughed, I'll cross-stitch that. The car came. I opened the door for her like we were leaving a church and not a hotel with a ballroom, which in some way we were. I slid in and set the envelope in my lap, not like a threat, but like a tool. On the back, you could see the heavy circle of the notary's seal pressed through like a thumbprint from someone who believed in edges. We drove. City lights made a slow river on the windshield. I let my head rest on the cool glass for a second, then sat up. Sleep would come later, order first. A list formed without trying. 10 o'clock, blue notebook, trust folder, deed copy, chain of custody form. Coffee, 3 sugars for Evan's father, none for me. 1 clean pad and a pen that won't skip. The story told like work, not like war. At a red light, a couple crossed in front of us, shoes clicking. They were arguing softly and holding hands anyway. The light turned green. They made it, we made it. Home waited with its small, honest chores. I would take off my suit coat and hang it on the wide wooden hanger because good shoulders deserve good shapes. I would put the envelope in the top drawer right where the old promises live. I would set an extra alarm even though I didn't need it. When you've spent years carrying a weight, there is a peculiar peace in finally setting it where it belongs. Not dropping it, placing it, nomming it, signing under it. I thought about the flame licking the edge of her decoy letter, how bright it tried to be, how quickly it learned the difference between spectacle and light. Quotable line, some fires warm you, some just want applause. Learn which ones to feed. We turned onto my street. The trees were black against a paler sky. A stray cat moved across the sidewalk like a small, deliberate decision. I unlocked the door. We went inside. Tomorrow had already started its quiet work in the dark. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.